Alright, folks, this is Acid Root, so I'm going to review the Millionaires free mixtape, Your Girl Does Party. So, about this project, basically, the Millionaires had the initial internet success. They were some of the first kind of uh, social media, internet musician celebrities that kind of manifested in, from 2007, 8, and 9 forward. But they really kind of took off just because they were originators of their style. The more I kind of go on to think about it, the more it really does start to make sense to some of the stuff that they were doing. Just because back in 2011 and stuff, and back in 2011 and stuff, I'm sure you've heard some of these songs like Kesha's TikTok. So Rihanna had this style, Kesha had this style. There were just a bunch of musicians that kind of had more of like a Euro pop, but then kind of LMFAO style. Just a bunch of this more. I like the concept of bar kind of stuff, but it was just a unique sound that kind of felt very congruent with 2011 and 2012. I mean, it kind of vanished by the time we got to 2013, especially 2014, but it was just there was this particular style between mid late 2010 and mid late 2012 that had a certain kind of things like 303, Millionaires, Kesha, Pitbull, those type crowds. But the thing about it was this mixtape that I'm getting to here, Your Girl Does Party. Initially, some of the stuff I had heard from the Millionaires, especially back in 2008 and 2009, kind of had a different kind of style just because these girls liked their liquor, and they did have a lot of songs that kind of had those kinds of MySpace vibes, but it almost felt like the direction that they went once they progressed off of MySpace and kind of got to the next step after that, they kind of almost felt like their identity kind of shifted. And I felt like some of the initial magic that they had back in their MySpace days with songs like Alcohol and I Like Money and Talk Shit and some of those numbers kind of wound up having a different appeal. And it wasn't noticeable on the cash only EP that I reviewed with Jackal Goldkick, but it essentially became a lot more noticeable because basically this was after mid late 2010 and then after the complete year of 2011 and pretty decently deep into 2012. So they kind of, I know that they helped originate the sound that Kesha and Pitbull started doing, but the concept behind it, they kind of copied the people that copied them, and it kind of wound up being kind of awkward and not quite as effective as they did back when they were just more on MySpace and more internet rap. I mean, they had to progress into something, and this was probably the manifesto of what their album would have sounded like, because as of this point, they hadn't put out an album. They put out an album a year later in 2013, but the style that they wound up having, they just didn't have, that was the only thing it could have really went to, is kind of like a Pitbull or Kesha knockoff, because Kesha actually found that style and transformed it and did it basically 3 years sooner than the Millionaires were able to. So they were kind of like, well, what do we do? We're kind of like out of a style here. And I mean, obviously, the Millionaires still like their liquor. They still are decent. They're really effective party girls. They've got some real saucy music and kind of arousing music and that sort of stuff. But this is kind of the concept of the fact that this project does not quite hit home as much as it needed to. There's a lot of tracks on here that are just pretty ingratiating to listen to. The production choice, I know because it's free. I mean, really, this sort of project is interesting just because, for the most part, there's not a ton of electropop mixtapes that there would be out there, electronic music. So the fact that the Millionaires even did this is one thing, but the problem with it is they don't really know the style. I mean, really, their MySpace songs were free, but they lost that magic that they had on there, and it just winds up being like 20. This feels like rehashes of 2011 in kind of a bad way. So it'll remind you of some of those days, but most of the beats are not that easy on the ears, and they kind of feel kind of cheap and tacky, and they just don't have the same situation that they need to. But to my knowledge, there's at least two singles, and I'll talk about them. So the first one is Boss Bitch. This is really good. This song felt, this is the way the rest of the mixtape needed to be. I definitely felt like the beat is great. It's just a nice, kind of mellow, laid back club track of them just kind of, being kind of female version of arrogant, but just kind of having nice mood about them and that sort of stuff. And then the other single was Drinks on Me, which is, I think, was actually on the Tonight album from 2013 also. But the problem with it is you just get a remix, which is not quite as good. I mean, not to discredit Riff Raff, but I would have liked if they would have included both versions on here. Because sometimes I feel like the remix detracts from it, just because I would have preferred the original song. I mean, they did it with Boss Bitch, but they needed to do it with Drinks on Me. I felt like this probably would have been more star-studded had they done that. Um, I know this kind of gripe about this is more nitpicking, but the situation, I don't know. I mean, I felt like that song was enough of a smash hit that it probably could have stood to have been on here just as like an extra way of getting it. But I don't know. I really am not too big a fan of when like a single releases and the remix shows up on a mixtape, but the original version of the song is better. But then I guess if they did that, there'd be really no point to getting Tonight, because Tonight didn't have that much promotion either, and they gave us Boss Bitch. So it's like, but Boss Bitch is a brilliant song. But really, I mean, this project, like I was saying, is very short lived, more short-winded. I mean, the girls have like the concept of the right attitude and the right things to talk about. They're mostly talking about money, being promiscuous, and getting crunk. And by that, I mean liquor, lots of liquor drinking. But the thing about it is it's more like the the stuff that they choose to kind of warp out this, and by that I mean the production. That's a lot of the stuff. So like Diamond Lane has a pretty aggravating beat. I mean, it's trying to be like this real late at night club song, but I don't know. I felt like that could have been way more catchy. That's the whole thing. That beat was just not nearly as good as it needed to be. And it's the same thing with Cha-Ching. The whistling in that song wears thin pretty fast. Pop Rocks was okay, but that's another beat that overstays its welcome pretty quickly. And like the Scissor is one of these songs that I was talking about that felt just ripped right out of 2011 with that sort of style. So that's just a lot of stuff that's kind of on here. And then Drinks on Me felt like a Kesha song. So that's kind of the atmosphere about that. So really, I want to actually say that Dat Boy was another one. I was just listening to that song, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like they had a better ability to be able to put like better electronic beats on there. I mean, I feel like the stuff they did on their EPs was far and away better than some of the stuff on here. Um, this is probably one of the most available free things from the Millionaires. I mean, you can find some of their stuff, like the EPs, you can digitally download that stuff, but I just kind of feel like in terms of like what's on the go as far as getting introduced, like if you don't want to spend like, I don't know if they have the physical copies of this, but if you want to have something free to kind of be introduced to them, there's only a handful of songs I would immediately go for. So I'll go ahead and let you know those. Out of 11 songs, I only wound up liking 4. And that's really not that sufficient. I mean, the Millionaires typically get like a bad rep just because their music is generally seen as tacky and trite and just a bunch of like kind of just short-lived type stuff. But there are some hits on here that are pretty fiery club hits when they actually are inspired and have the right attitude as far as what to put on a free mixtape. So those songs are Boss Bitch, Ratchet with Krayshawn, I Get Around, and then the My Chick Bad remix. So My Chick Bad, they freestyled that. I think they freestyled. They may not have, but it felt good just to kind of see how that worked on the song. That was a good song for those girls on there. It felt like, I mean, because typically that's what the song's about, is them basically vouching for saying this is the kind of chick that I am. So that's a nice song on there. That was a nice choice for a freestyle. And I Get Around was a nice club track. I Get Around was a nice club track. It had the right kind of feel, was more of like the style I was kind of hoping for from the Millionaires. This is the sort of stuff like Boss Bitch, Ratchet, and I Get Around conveyed like a certain thing. And these were kind of more original in the sense of like having kind of the sleazy, because it's not so much these women are sleazy, but they kind of have the approach of kind of just having the more hole in the wall pub, pub crawl kind of feel, liquor events, that sort of stuff. And it's that kind of stuff that had like a nightlife, just because there weren't many musicians, especially female musicians, that were doing that stuff on like free mixtape websites. So it was really original to get that sort of style, and it's just too bad that it didn't happen way more. I feel like these three songs, Boss Bitch, Ratchet, I Get Around, it kind of conveys the sort of stuff that they're up to and what they're doing when they're out and about. The Millionaires get approached by rich men out there and showcase the fact that they have like, easily, despite the fact that like, there are richer and more polished musicians out there, the fact that they still are having an exuberantly pretty good times. That's kind of the concept of that, but I just kind of feel like the sleazy kind of hole in the wall cuts that you could get here, especially for free, was just overlooked a lot. And it's just too bad, because these three songs hit as hard as they do, and it makes you think that the rest of the album's on par with that, but they really give you this mostly um like Euro pop throwaways and 2011 rehashes, and that's kind of the stuff. This mostly, I mean, I would have to say for the most part, it would seem like most of the production on here just really is not up to snuff. I mean, it's free. The least you can say to that is like, well, what do you expect from a free project? I mean, these women did spend the money on these beats that they put on this project, but they are pretty tasteless. That's kind of the whole concept of it. But Ratchet with Krayshawn, extremely good. That's probably, to me, the best song on here. Krayshawn did a great job on here. She fit the song real well. She didn't try to be that lyrical. She kept it simple, but she was effective in doing it. Felt like another hit song for Krayshawn that could have been one of her better songs that she had, besides like Bumpin' Bumpin', Gucci Gucci, some of those numbers. But um, yeah, I mean, the Millionaires did great. I mean, they all had great chemistry on there. I definitely felt like it was an exceptional. That's probably the nastiest song on here in terms of just like overall appeal. It just is stellar on all cylinders, really exceptionally showed them off. Boss Bitch was a great single, kind of had the right attitude, good club feel. And then I Get Around was the sleaziest number on here, just kind of a travel song and just kind of about like enjoying the night, but not quite a single. It's kind of like, I like when people will do club tracks that are not necessarily the single or the song intended for radio. So it was good to kind of get that. That's the sort of stuff, like I said, should have been shown at least 4 or 5 more times, and it was, but just not nearly as good as those. So those are the 4 songs. If you throw in My Chick Bad remix, those are the 4 songs that I recommend. So I'm gonna score this mixtape, me liking 4 out of 11. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 10, just because it's not even close to half. It's not close enough to half of the project. I mean, it is free music, but I feel like just really liking just 3 original songs out of 11, it probably could have been more. I mean, the one remix that they did, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not like I'm not gonna dump on this project and kind of say that it's garbage, because it's not. I mean, they have personality, and it showcases in that. It's just the fact that there's just way too many more missed opportunities than there need to be, and their original style, especially them being pioneers in what they did with social media and internet music and stuff, is just overlooked by the fact that they kind of got outstretched by the rampant music of 2011. in 2010. So Kesha did it better, but they just weren't able to catch up with her, and they do have the personality to catch up with her, but they want, like I said, they wound up copying the copiers, so it just kind of came off as eh. So um I just would have to say that based upon, I mean, I'll tell you one thing the Millionaires can exceptionally do is a club song. And they know how to make drinking songs, club songs, outgoing songs, and kind of rowdy songs. So it's good to kind of have that, but this didn't happen enough in a good way. So 3.5 out of 10. The social score I'll give a 5 just because it did have Boss Bitch, which was on an album, so you can get it for free or you can pay for it. And then it also had Drinks on Me, which should have been the regular version on this project. But there you have it. So nice mixtape. I mean, if you're just looking at it in terms of saying, well, it's free, so how much can you hate on it? And it's like, well, I'm not, and I don't feel like it's something hateable. It's just the fact that if you're hoping to bag like 6 or 7 good songs out of 11 on here, it's probably not the case. But there's at least, to me, there was at least 3 songs I would listen to on a regular rotation. So that's something to say, is just get a few extra good free Millionaire songs and be stoked about that.